This is Contemplative at Home, and as always, you are very, very welcome here. Before we turn to prayer, let me say this. We are in John chapter 6. Jesus has just miraculously fed thousands of people with just a few loaves and fishes. He's then gone up away into the mountains by himself to pray. And then, as the mood shifts and a frenzy starts to take hold of the people around Jesus, he withdraws, going away up into the hills by himself to breathe, to pray, to be with his Father. Today's passage comes immediately following these moments. In the darkness of that night, out in the lake, an intense and surreal and dreamlike moment for the disciples and Jesus. After this moment on the sea that we'll be praying with today, this chapter gets very heady. Lots of questions and lots of talk, lots of theology. But for now, we are still in an embodied moment where matter and spirit meet. So I invite you to put aside heady questions like, is it possible to walk on water? And did this actually happen? And instead to stay in your spirit, in your experience, perhaps coming at this from a part of yourself that feels that you are in the dark and that Jesus has not yet showed up. Let's take a moment before we go further to stretch our bodies. So if you want to stand up, stand up. Maybe put those arms up above your head. Maybe easing out your back a bit. Rolling out the joints that need some release. And then take your time to come down into a posture that will hold you openly in prayer. So just notice what's going on for you mentally and emotionally today, what your energy's like. Now we just briefly scan our bodies from the head down to the shoulders, arms, hands, softening as we find tension through the torso, down into the hips, the legs, down to the ankles, and into the feet. Letting your lower limbs grow heavy. Coming into your breath as you settle into this moment, to this place on the earth. To yourself within both of those. Here and now. So here we are, Lord, all devoted to you or at least as devoted to you as we are able to be just now. Would you take the tiny offering of ourselves and give us all that we're longing for, the greatness of yourself. Amen. So I invite you to come to your breath now, to rest here as you feel the breath filling the body and being released from the body. I invite you to imagine that you are resting in a shaft of sunlight, that this light gently warms your skin. And perhaps you can see this bath of light as the Lord's loving presence, resting on you, warming you, gently loving you. As you inhale, I invite you to receive the warmth of this love into your being, into your body. As you exhale, releasing any tension, anxiety, or fear. And now I invite you to see yourself on the edge of the Sea of Galilee with the disciples. The sky is falling to evening. The temperature just starting to dip. Take a moment to look around at the disciples and notice who you see. How they look at the end of this long day, having fed so many people. What they're wearing. Take a moment to notice what you're wearing. And if you wish, I invite you to see yourself carrying in your heart or in your pocket this part of your life you identified earlier that feels as though it's still in the dark. Now we hear the crunch of gravel as you all clamber into the boat together and push off from the shore. The water, a bit chilly, now slapping the sides of the boat. Everyone settling in together to their place in the little vessel. Many of those who were fed on the shore, watching you leave without Jesus. As Peter and Andrew set the boat towards Capernaum, the light fades from the sky. The first stars appear. The water becomes black around the boat. And 2 lanterns are lit. Somehow you and your companions feel closer together in your little pool of light, making its way through the darkness of the lake. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. And now the breeze becomes sharper, becomes a strong wind. The rowers have to pull much harder over the tumultuous water. The waves slap the boat and spray, and water splashes in. The lights bob up and down over the rolling surface of the water. Notice the effort and strain of the rowers. Are you one of them? Feel the darkness of the night around you now. After a long row, 3 or 4 miles out across this sea, somebody cries out that there's something on the water. A figure. It looks like a man approaching, walking on the surface. These rough waves. Terror grips all in the boat. And then, from the figure, the voice of Jesus. It is I. Do not be afraid. And they all want to pull him into the boat. And then, before you know it, you've reached the shore on the other side. So I'll read the text now from the NRSV. I invite you to listen and be open for any details you hadn't noticed before. And then I'll invite you to allow this scene to become your own in your imagination. When evening came, Jesus' disciples went down to the sea. They got into a boat and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough. Because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat. And they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the land toward which they were going. So I want to give you some time and space here to reimagine this story. Perhaps you put yourself in that boat with whatever you are carrying that feels dark. Perhaps you imagine yourself making that great effort of rowing over rough waves. Let the story unfold again for you in your own way. as you reach that shore, what does Jesus have to say to you about this? Where is he bringing you to land? May the Lord of all life meet you in the middle of whatever road you're walking. Dispel your fears and give you peace. In the name of Christ. Amen.